my garden revels. Wow, last night, I have a little confession here, is that I sometimes, oftentimes, actually a lot of times, almost all the time actually, like to sleep outside. There's just something that kicks in. I get a good night's sleep. Anyway, last night, didn't expect it at all whatsoever. It rained, and the rain was falling on my face, and it felt really, really good. Even scientifically, the phenomenon of rain on this planet, I think, is just mind-blowing for me, and how it just wets everything down, turns everything green, almost instantaneously. You know, especially after all of this struggle with the hot weather, trying to keep things watered, just how instantaneously things can get watered in just a short amount of time. So when I woke up, everything was wet. Just a nice feeling. And I know you fellow Oregonians think the same way. There's something that's very refreshing about the rain, especially since we haven't had it for a while. Anyways, this week, another big week. We had the pack trials last week, remember? This week we had what was called the FarWest show. It's put on by the Oregon Association Nurseries, and the growers from all over the state, all over the Pacific Northwest get together. All the retailers from around the U.S. get together, and we have this big powwow. And just a big time for Oregon, a big time for the nursery business. I didn't get a chance to bring you along. It's really tight schedules, a lot of seminars, a lot of things going on. But I did manage to bring home a few goodies. It's kind of like going on a trip and, you know, you bring presents back. I wanted to show you these, kind of show and tell some of the plants that I found that I think you might get pretty excited about. At least I was excited. So let me show you. Okay, first great find from the show was this Gingo Biloba. Now, a couple of things about ginkgo that I'm a little bit endeared to, so I wanted to kind of sneak this in just to show it off. Gingo Biloba is one of those trees that is truly a living fossil, meaning that this tree was around, not this particular tree, but this kind of tree was around during 150, 170 million years ago, so during the Jurassic Age. So I like this because I just think of the dinosaurs seeing the same tree, the dinosaurs eating the leaves off of these trees, and it kind of connects us to that time. I mean, dinosaurs ruled the planet. So if you're a dinosaur crazed, geeky person, this is a must-have in your garden, and they can go into a container nicely for many years. Plant them in the garden as well. Couple things though. One, this one's called a jade butterfly, and the neat thing about this particular ginkgo is that it's a lot more dense. It's a lot more dense branch. Sometimes the ginkgos can get long and slender and very spaced, where this one stays a lot tighter. And I love the name jade butterfly because it really looks like, if you look closely, it looks like a butterfly, a butterfly with green leaves. So jade butterfly. That's not the only thing about this tree though, is that it also, and this is probably one of the most amazing things, is that during the fall, this is that bright yellow. This is intensely golden yellow and very striking. So a neat tree if you love fall colors. If you love fall colors, if you're a dinosaur crazy person, this is definitely a tree for you. And it's just that connection, just that Jurassic Age. It was here when the asteroid hit. So I think that's just amazing. Boom. Take a look at this guy. This one was just an outstanding specimen at the show. I noticed now, I was walking the aisle and saw it in this booth, and it just immediately stopped me because it was surrounded by green and this creamy yellow, striking yellow with cream mixture on this pine just stops you in your tracks. And I noticed I wasn't the only one, by the way. All these other plant people were coming up and just wanting to touch it because it was just so enthralling. This is a Pinus. It's a type of pine, Pinus densiflora. Densiflora meaning heavily loaded with flowers, which is kind of a misnomer, meaning that just densely piney, pine coney. This is technically, Pinus densiflora, by the way, is the red pines. It's the Japanese, well, it's heavily in Japan, but it's one of the signature Japanese garden trees, the red pines. And when you look at it, it's very creamy, it's very yellow, and you think, well, that's not technically a red pine, is it? Because you think it'd be red, but it's the bark on it tends to be red, and the little cracks and crevices tend to be red on that. It gets it a little more, as it ages, gets into a little more silvery look to it. But you'll see that it's a red barked tree, which is really neat, but just so striking, and in a nice large container as a centerpiece in your garden, or just as a centerpiece in the garden. It's also one of those slow growing types of trees. Here is a growing tip, by the way. These little cone heads, as they grow, you can clip those off and keep the tree much more dense and much more slower growing. So just a growing tip on that. But isn't that just neat? I just love looking at it. I like just sitting here next to it. I know, it seems like I'm showing you a lot of trees, but these are great trees also for containers, by the way. And again, just some presents that I'm bringing back from this trip. This one here is Sciadopitys verticillata, and that is a Japanese umbrella pine. And Sciadopitys, by the way, means umbrella pine, and verticillata means whorled. So if you take a look at this, it really looks like spokes on an umbrella. So I think it's a really appropriate name for this guy. He just has those really thick but soft needles. Such a standout, and I love looking at these. These are really an unusual type of plant, and I have put these in containers as a standout. Now, this particular kind is called Joe Cozy, and what makes this different from other Japanese umbrella pines is that this one is very narrow. So if you have a narrow space and you want to grow it up just tall and slender, this would be a great choice. But yeah, Japanese umbrella pine, beautiful needles, lovely color throughout the year. Also, by the way, because it's a little more cylindrical, or a little more columnar, that it resists, if you get a heavy snow or an ice storm, it stays upright, so it doesn't break off as much as other Japanese umbrella pines. But just a great choice. Just love looking at this. Another tree? I know. But there are a few of you who were looking for some flowering dogwoods this spring, and you might have had a hard time. And I wanted to show you this because if you're hoping to have a flowering dogwood, this would be definitely high on my list of choices. Now this is a Cornuscusa. There's a Cornus Florida that everyone thinks about when they think of a flowering dogwood in the springtime, though it has a couple of health issues to it that you might have growing a tree that's beautiful for many years and suddenly die. Cornuscusa moves around all of those problems very easy, so you get a nice, strong, sturdy tree for many, many years. And this particular one, this one's called the Samaritan. Samsan is Cornuscusa Samsan. Now, why is this one so different? Well, one, it blooms white in the springtime. Instead of having rounded blooms on a typical Cornus Florida, these have little designer sharp edges to the particular bloom. Of course, you can see it has that variegated leaf, so it doesn't just fade away as another green tree after it blooms, but stands out on its own even after it finishes blooming. But wait, those blooms turn into kind of a little red strawberry as it gets older. So you'll have this interesting foliage with a little bit of a red strawberry later on in the summer months, which really makes for a great conversation piece plant. So if you're shy but you have this craving to still talk with people, this is a great conversation piece plant. People will come up and ask you, hey, what is this tree? Still, even so, you have the variegated leaf, you have the designer bloom, and you have the strawberry on there. In the fall, you see the creamy white variegated leaf on there turns into a hot pink/red. So you get this actual fall foliage as well. So, and it's a small tree, 25 feet. So if you're looking for a small tree, great in a container, great in the landscape as well. So, and just tough and hardy. So an option for you, just another thing that I brought back from the show that I'm excited to show you. Yeah, I know. It's a tray of goodies. I just love these miniature conifers, and we always have a nice selection of these throughout the year. They never fail to impress me every time I see them. Just unusual, lovely, beautiful shapes on them, almost just like little miniature gardens. So take a look at that. Aren't they just cute as all get out? And each one of these, by the way, have just a unique, unusual story. So, you catch me at a party talking about plants, we can just talk all night long like this. But the neat thing about that, and that's not even the best part about it, this is because I also kind of people watched while I was at the show, and it was at this particular booth that I wanted to see who else was as giddy and as excited on these small little conifers. But on this tape, I watched all these people stop by this booth, and it was this right here. I gotta show you this. So it was this little garden here in this container. Take a look at that. Isn't that just, there's a restful, peaceful feeling just walking past this. And now these are hardened, long-lived, I don't want to say cynical gardeners that have seen it all, but yet they had to stop by, and they just stopped just to touch and look. And so it's a neat idea to a neat idea I wanted to bring to you is that take these small conifers, create a little miniature oasis that you can go to during times of stress and hardship, and this might help relieve that stress, bring it back down to something manageable. But anyway, just an idea. I'm going to give you something to think about as far as you color lovers are concerned. Right now is a beautiful time, of course, for all of these amazing colored celosias. Isn't that just incredibly bright and vibrant? So if you're hoping to do a container with a touch of color for your special get together, there are these beautiful celosias, and even when I saw them, I just it gets your heart beating a bit, and always fun on the eyes. So anyway, guys, we can talk about plants all day long. I want to cut it short. There's lots of plants back there, some beautiful Japanese maples, love to show you. And then some just unusual, weird, strange, weeping things that we can go over as well. I might save that for a little bit later video. Hope all is well in your garden. Guys, that's the show for the day. Always live your passion.